The number one reason why people are afraid of providing liquidity is because of impermanent loss. But have you ever heard of the opposite side of the equation, which is permanent gains? In this episode today, I'm going to explain to you very simply impermanent loss and the positive twist on that, which is permanent gains. So this is DeFi in 5, and this is all about liquidity pools. Impermanent loss or permanent gains. When you add liquidity to a pool, you're giving both token A and token B to the pool in 50-50 proportion based in US dollar value, so not in token count. So in this particular instance, it's adding 200 token A and 100 token B. And the Uniswap V2 pool formula is X times Y equals K, which is token A times token B equals a constant. So 200 times 100 equals 20,000. The pool uses an automated formula to maintain the balance, but if one token pumps hard, it's because people are buying it out of the pool and selling now the less valuable token for it. So in this instance, you have less of the mooning token and more of the dumping token. So in this example, token A stays the same, but token B goes up 2x. So LP, just as an arbitrary number, earns $50 in fees. However, holding token B would have earned $100 if you sold it. So you actually lost $50 versus holding as opposed to selling. So in this instance, because token B has gone up 2x, there's only 50 tokens in the pool, and there's 400 of token A. So it's 400 times 50. And the constant remains the same at 20,000. However, the impermanent loss is only a paper loss, meaning only when you withdraw it is it considered lost. If prices return to the original state, the loss disappears. And if both token A and token B are highly volatile, you will end up with plus 5% tokens on both sides, just as an example. And this is what permanent gains are. So X times Y equals K. So if you have back to the original state and you had plus 5% on both sides, you would have 210 tokens and 105 tokens of token B, and the constant changes to 22,050. Impermanent loss is the worst when tokens move independently. It's lowest when they move together. So example, a stablecoin pool. Permanent gains is best when tokens move together and they're both high trading volume. So when both assets are moving in the same direction with high volatility and they maintain a stable pool together, these are the 3 things which make part of an incredible pool. But if you want to see the 7 things, I would recommend checking out this video above. So why provide liquidity? Because fees and arbitrage can beat the impermanent loss, especially in high volume pools. If you choose the right kind of liquidity pool, you will notice the permanent gains auto compounding as yield in your liquidity pool. This is why impermanent loss is largely misunderstood. There's a negative perception and a negative bias towards liquidity pools, but nobody considers the positive perspective. If you do your research properly and you trial, you measure, and you amplify the successful pool, you'll have a free money printer from the right liquidity pools. So now let's look at some examples to let this message sink in. So here we have pDAI and Pulsechain. So this liquidity pool has 1.21 million in it, with LP rewards of 106.3%, which is based on the volume. So the daily LP rewards is $4,480, and you would get that based on the percentage of ownership that you have in the pool. So it's a very high yield pool, but what does the chart actually look like? So pDAI is trending very heavily towards pDAI. So you're likely to get impermanent loss on your pDAI. Now, you can see here, there is kind of this median range where it generally kind of fluctuates back to, but it's also trending down. So for example, if you would have created a liquidity pool here, you would be massively down on your pDAI. You would have a lot more Pulsechain, but you'd be very down on your pDAI. Now, there is a potential that because of the volume in this pool, you might still have plus plus on both sides if you've kept it here for long enough, but this is generally trending down and away. So this is not something that you would want to rush into. You would really want to experiment with this. Now, looking at CDAI and Pulsechain. So at the moment, there's just under 7,000 in liquidity with 589% LP rewards, with 13,000 volume. Now, obviously, the volume is what determines the LP rewards based on the liquidity. So this is a very attractive liquidity pool. 586% is phenomenal. When you look at the chart, it also tells a story of being very beautiful. Now, it does have a few issues. So it has a rather extreme range. So just being generous with this range, this is an 82x range. So in other words, if you're providing liquidity up here, you're going to get impermanent loss, but there's a lot of volume that's flowing through here at certain periods through this chart. Having said that, this token is also being wildly minted out. So whether or not that's going to devalue your tokens as well, these are just some of the things that you need to consider. But in principle, it has a ranging area. You can see, even if we be generous and we bring it down to here, it's a very decent range of 37x. So that's quite a big range where the chance of impermanent loss, if you need to take out your yield ASAP, can be pretty serious. Because it's also being heavily minted, you could also get a scenario where it really dumps again, like we've seen here. And that would obviously really cause huge amounts of impermanent loss. Now, this one here, this is MXDAI and DAI. 18,000 liquidity, 1,133 volume, and 3.96% APR. Not a huge amount of APR, but you look at this as a stable asset. So this is like a stable coin. It has a tight range and it has burn to mint, which stabilizes. So at the 1-to-1, and it's only ranging between 11%. So this is something where you're going to get virtually no impermanent loss. If you leave it in there long enough, you're just going to end up generating yield. And the beauty of something like this, which is very new and innovative on Pulsechain, on the plus side of the parity, you burn your pDAI to meet your MXDAI 1-to-1. On the negative side of the parity, you sacrifice your MXDAI to claim your pDAI 1-to-1. So there's always an incentive to maintain the stability of this peg along the line, no matter what kind of volatility is happening in these charts outside of here. So this is something that I'd consider to be a very good liquidity pool, but obviously very, very modest kinds of gains. But these are just some of the considerations to consider. In the next episode, I'm going to show you what you can do to trial, measure, and amplify your liquidity pools, because you need to see what you're doing to know where to go in the future. This is DeFi in 5. This was impermanent loss, but now we're thinking permanent gains.